Once in a while, I read a book and I wish I were the one who'd written it. That's this book. Hey everyone, Professor August here, and today I'm going to be talking about this book, Disorientation by Elaine Hsieh Chou. This is one of my absolute favorite books that I've ever read. Is it the best piece of literature written by an Asian American? No. Is it my favorite? Yes. If you have never gone to college, read this book and it'll show you that sometimes college is just a parody of itself. It is hilarious, this book. And if you've gone to college or if you've been in graduate school, especially, this book will resonate with you because it just shows how serious some people take academia, and then things do fall apart and things happen in graduate school and in college that just seem like a farce. This book is just so good. It touches on everything from racism to abusive mentors and just peer rivalry, wanting to be the best at everything in your class. I love it. This book is about Ingrid Yang. She's the main character of the book, and it follows about 1 year in her life from the age of 29 to 30. She's in graduate school and she's working on her dissertation of this supposed Chinese author, a poet named Xiaowen Chao. And Xiaowen Chao is somebody who was a faculty member at her school, at her university, and he died. Her mentor, named Michael, he has been urging her to work on the poetry of Xiaowen Chao and write a dissertation. And Ingrid is just like any graduate student that I've ever known, including myself, who just struggled to get through that damn dissertation to get the PhD. She writes and then doubts herself, and she's always seeing herself in competition to one of her peers named Vivian, who is just the most outspoken Asian American activist on campus. And draws attention to all sorts of white supremacist systems on campus and in the United States. And Ingrid is just well, she's not super shy. She's just a woman who's not super interested in activism and talking about racial issues in society. She just wants to get her dissertation done and move on with her life. So the story follows Ingrid coming to terms with the fact that she really just has to finish her book, her dissertation. But early in the book, like this is in the first quarter of the book, there's a massive twist. And so this is, I'm going to give it away, but it's kind of necessary for the whole book. And it happens so early in the book that it's not like ruining the ending of the book. But the twist is that Xiaowen Chao is not a real Chinese poet. He was not a person who was born in China. He was not Asian. He's not Chinese. And this happens because as Ingrid is writing her dissertation, she's in the archives at her university looking through boxes of materials from this dead professor. And she comes across a note. And then she uses that note to find, she tries to find out who wrote that note. And she figures out that a guy named John Smith wrote the note. She hires a private investigator and figures out there are two John Smiths nearby. One of them is just an outright racist, like he lives in a trailer. He has a sign on his door that says Yellow Peril 2.0 and he hates Chinese people. Turns out it's not him. The second John Smith is a white man who was pretending to be Xiaowen Chao. And so Ingrid, uncovers this pretty early in the book. And then the rest of the book is her dealing with the ramifications of exposing Xiaowen Chao as actually just a white guy in yellowface. So yellowface is this concept of, white people pretending to be Asian by putting on makeup and putting tape around their eyes and speaking with an accent. It's the same as blackface. It's minstrelsy. It's racist. And it really undermines everything that she's been working towards. And it also undermines what everybody else in her department has been working towards, because a lot of them are doing Chowian studies, focusing on this one poet. But this poet isn't real. He's a white guy who's been pretending. It's great because it gives us this sort of parallel track of Ingrid is dealing with imposter syndrome as a graduate student. She doesn't feel super great about her work. And at the flip side, we actually have an imposter, like a real imposter, who is pretending to be a Chinese man. So I loved the way that this is intertwined and laid out for us. The story goes through her discovering that Xiaowen Chao, is not actually a Chinese guy. He's John Smith, a white guy. And I'm not going to reveal anything about what happens in the aftermath, but I will just say this. Everything that happens afterwards is so familiar to me. I spent 10 years in graduate school at the University of Chicago, and it was just sometimes it's just funny, like the way people talk about their work or the way that people talk about each other, um, how serious some people take their work. It's like we're not curing cancer here. We're like reading literature and books and poetry and talking about ethnic minorities and religion. So we're all just like patting each other on the back and saying how great we are, when in fact a lot of it is just funny. And so I love the way that the book unfolds, and I think the author did a great job of satirizing graduate school, like university life. Um, and the characters are just so great. There's a huge cast of characters in this book, and so I'm just going to go through them quickly. Ingrid is the main character. She's 29 years old, Taiwanese American PhD student, and she's just fun to read because she's like a lot of students that I've seen who are they're not super inclined to be like racial justice, like social warriors. She kind of likes those things, but she's really just focused on her own work. And then she gets tripped up when people talk to her about social justice. She's just like, I don't know what that means. But like in her head, she's like, I don't know what that means. And she just pretends. I feel like a lot of people do that because they're too embarrassed to say, like, I don't actually know what that term means. Like when you say this word, what are you actually talking about? So like she never confronts anybody, she just pretends, and then she goes home and looks it up later so she doesn't get embarrassed in social situations. So it's really funny to read like that character. Her best friend is named Eunice. Eunice is a Korean American PhD student. She's present pretty much throughout the whole book, but we don't really get a good sense of who she is. She's just like the helper. She helps Ingrid do certain things, sleuthing, trying to figure out who John Smith is, and who Xiao and Chao is. So like we don't really get too much information about who she is as a person. Ingrid is engaged to one of the most infuriating characters I've ever read. His name is Charles. No, Stephen. His name is Stephen. It was one of those. His name is Stephen. He's just annoying because he's like the guy who like takes care of his spouse, fiance as a father figure would. Like, don't drink too much sugar. Don't forget to take your coat when you leave the house. Like, make sure to put your dishes away. Like, he's super annoying in that way. And he is super holier than thou. Like, everything he does, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about, even though he is wrong. So she's with him. She tries to figure out whether she actually wants to be with this guy. So it brings up a lot of issues of fetishization, whether Stephen, is fetishizing her as an Asian American woman. There's a lot to deal with there. Very interesting love story. And then there are three sort of rival characters to Ingrid. One, of course, is Xiao Chao. He's the one she discovers is not actually a Chinese man. His name is John Smith. And then there's her PhD advisor named Michael Bartholomew. And Michael Bartholomew is abusive. I guess that's the right way to put it. He is like, he tries to mentor Ingrid and all the other students, but then he turns out to be a white supremacist. So there's that. The turn that his story takes and his arc takes in the book is one, hilarious, but two, like super real. I had a very similar interaction with a faculty member and relationship with a faculty member when I was an undergraduate in Los Angeles. And like, shocking that it does happen, but it does happen in real life. So that part of Bartholomew, like the Michael's storyline, is like a little too real for me. And then the third sort of rival that Ingrid has, her name is Vivian. She does post-colonial studies, and she's also working on Xiao and Chao, but she kind of already has a feeling that Chao isn't a real Chinese person because his work just doesn't seem authentic to her. And she's the social justice warrior on campus. So she is convinced that, America is a racist place, and everybody is susceptible to the systemic injustices of American history. And so she is at the forefront of drawing attention to those things and wanting students like Ingrid to recognize that internalized racism is a thing. And if you dislike your ancestry, that's because the way the American system is set up has made you dislike who you are. And so there's this really interesting play here where Vivian is pushing for social justice issues, and Ingrid, it's not that she doesn't care about social justice, it's just like she doesn't know enough to be able to speak contemporaneously about social issues, and her engagement with Vivian is always antagonistic. She's kind of jealous of Vivian and wants to be more like her, and it just doesn't have the skill set to do so. But by the end of the book, you kind of see Ingrid becoming more and more aware and socially aware of issues that Asian Americans face, especially with the history that the United States has. Like in the 1870s, we banned Asian women from coming to the United States because Asian women have children and we didn't want more of them here. And then in 1882, we passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. So if you were Chinese, no, thank you, you couldn't come to the United States. And so like our country has this long lineage of anti-Asian rhetoric and anti-Asian discourse. And so Ingrid is kind of like, she's aware of all of that. She's just not super bothered by it until she comes to realize, okay, she has to care more and she has to do more. And she turns into the person who actually tries to solve this issue. And that's the ending of the book that I'm not going to discuss anymore, but it is really interesting how this turns out. This book is easy to read, I'll be honest. I love this book. This is the third time I've read it, and I'm probably going to keep reading it for a very long time. It's there The whole book is just easy to get through, even though there are topics in there that are difficult to deal with, like anti-Asian rhetoric and Asian hate and xenophobia and racism and white supremacy. But all of it is done satirically and really well done at that. So it's just fun to read. There are a couple parts in the book that are kind of convoluted when the characters are dealing with their academic work, and that's done so perfectly because if you've not gone to college, or even if you are in college, those parts are meant to be satirical. Like they're funny because they're difficult. So as you're reading it, you're like, I don't even know what the hell this says. Like Ingrid is writing about poetic enjambment in Hsieh Chou's poetry, and like there's like a section that goes on, and you're like, I don't know, what is this? But that's the point of it. It's like we as graduate students and professors and people in academia take ourselves so seriously sometimes. We're not curing cancer. So why, like, anyways, so yes, it is an easy book to get through. I highly recommend it. I would love to hear what other people think of this. So if you have comments on this, please put it in the comments below and engage with the book. If you haven't read it before, put it on your TBR. I'm just going to continue teaching it because I love this book so much. Anyways, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe below. Catch you in the next video.